French man who was in a vegetative state for more than a decade has died after doctors turned off his life support 9 days ago. The lengthy legal battle surrounding end-of-life care for Vincent Lambert made him a symbol of right-to-die cases in France. The UK says 3 Iranian gunboats unsuccessfully tried to block a British tanker in the Strait of Hormuz, the latest escalation of tensions in the Persian Gulf over the 2015 nuclear deal. More from London on the way. And an unusual move from the U.S. that could worsen trade tensions with Europe. The Trump administration says it will investigate whether a proposed French tax on giant tech companies discriminates against American businesses. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on France 24. I'm Jeannie Godula in Paris. Well, we'll start here in France, where a high-profile life support case has finally come to an end. Vincent Lambert, a quadriplegic in a vegetative state for over a decade, has died. His case had bitterly divided his family, gone through multiple judicial appeals, and created a national debate about death and the right to die. Solange Mougin explains.
The waiting, if not the fighting or the debate, is over. Vincent Lambert, at 42, has passed away. Over a decade ago, in 2008, he suffered a near-fatal car accident. In a vegetative state, doctors tried for years to see signs of brain activity. Then, in 2013, they and Lambert's wife decided to pull the plug, with the support of 6 of the young man's siblings. But his parents, both devout Catholics, challenged the decision, arguing they hadn't been properly consulted. A court ruled in their favor, and Lambert was kept alive. 2 years later, the European Court of Human Rights made a landmark judgment, ruling that French doctors could take him off life support. Once again, his parents launched legal appeals, even trying to take the case to the UN. But after much legal back and forth, the French State Council and then the highest case of appeals ruled on June 28th to end life support. Lambert's parents have since filed a suit for attempted murder, but they said in a statement they were, quote, resigned that this was the end. Called in France l'affaire Vincent Lambert, the case has been followed nationally for years. It has created a debate about euthanasia, if it is akin to murder as some see it, or if it should be made legal in France, because for others, such a step should be a dying person's choice. In France, a 2016 law does allow terminally ill patients to be sedated, but there is no legal lethal injection to end suffering. Vincent Lambert's case does provide a rare lesson for an entire nation, though. One of the importance of writing down, even when young and able-bodied, your views on how, if tragedy strikes, you wish to die. For legal experts agree, had Vincent Lambert written down his wishes, his care would not have been up for debate.
Next now to the Strait of Hormuz in the Gulf. The UK says 3 Iranian ships attempted to block the passage of a British oil tanker there, forcing a UK frigate to intervene. The British government says the move from Iran goes against international law. Iran's Revolutionary Guards, however, deny they blocked the oil tanker. Well, that comes as tensions are growing between Iran and the rest of the world in the wake of the 2015 nuclear deal that the U.S. pulled out of last year. On Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Tehran that sanctions on Iran would soon be increased substantially over its decision to enrich uranium beyond the limit imposed by that deal. Well, for more now, let's bring in our London correspondent, Benedict Pavia. Benedict, first of all, what more can you tell us about what happened there in the Gulf?
Well, this is just a real tension-rising moment between London and Tehran, yet another one. The British Ministry of Defence has now confirmed this incident did take place. Before, we were getting it from various sources, American sources, both media and unofficial American sources. But now the British Ministry of Defence says that Iranian boats actually tried to intercept a British oil tanker, therefore a commercial vessel near the Gulf, before being driven off by a Royal Navy ship. Now, HMS Montrose, which is the British frigate that was escorting this British oil tanker, moved we're told by the MOD, between the 3 Iranian boats and this tanker called the British Heritage, before actually issuing verbal warnings to the Iranian vessels. This spokesman from the Ministry of Defense said the Iranians' actions obviously were contrary to international law. Now, giving us a bit more detail, the 3 Iranian boats, which are believed to belong to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, approached this commercial British tanker, tried to halt it as it was in fact moving out of the Gulf into the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz, where we know there have been in the last few weeks and months an increasing number of incidents. Now, the guns on HMS Montrose, this frigate, then reportedly trained those guns specifically on those 3 Iranian boats that were threatening to intercept the British oil tanker. They were ordered to back off. They heeded that warning, and importantly, no shots were fired. Now, the Iranians deny that this incident happened, but it comes in a context of course, retaliation, because last week, you'll remember that in Gibraltar, near Gibraltar, the British Marines actually stopped an Iranian boat that had gone from Iran that was carrying oil that, according to the British, with American sources, were actually trying to go to Syria.
Now, this isn't the only source of tension at the moment between the UK and Iran. Talk us through what else has been happening.
No, of course, there's a whole context, indeed, you were quoting, with the Trump administration, which has indeed pulled out of an international agreement on Tehran's nuclear program. Of course, it's important to say that the European allies, including the UK, have not actually followed suit. But the fact of the matter is there's anyway increased tension historically between Britain and Iran, but there's particular tension over several British people who are detained in Iran, and one of the most prominent cases, if not the most prominent case, is that of Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe, who's just finished a hunger strike. She is a double national, British-Iranian. That double nationality is not recognized by the Iranians, and she actually has been jailed for 5 years. She's accused, that was back in 2016, she's been accused by the Iranians of spying, which is absolutely denied by the British, who say that she was simply visiting her parents in order to take along her child, their grandchild. So bad, because it's a new incident. And of course, what the British want to try and do is, an official spokesman was saying, is to de-escalate the tension between London and Tehran. But there are more accusations coming out of Iran, particularly from President Rouhani, saying that actually the British are, quote, scared, hopeless for using their Royal Navy warships to shadow a British tanker in the Gulf, and then says, you, Britain, are the initiator of insecurity, and you will realize the consequences later.
Benedict, thank you for that. France 24's Benedict Pavio. Now, France's plan to impose a new tax on tech giants has sparked anger from the U.S. On Wednesday, Donald Trump ordered an investigation into that tax, which is expected to pass the French Senate today. The investigation could lead the U.S. to levy new tariffs against France, as Brian Quinn explains.
A digital dust-up. France's planned tax on tech giants is now under investigation by the Office of U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, giving the office wide latitude to investigate unfair trade practices.
The United States is very concerned that the digital services tax, which is expected to pass the French Senate tomorrow, unfairly targets American companies.
France's plan is nicknamed the GAFA tax, after U.S. tech giants Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. Such companies routinely funnel their European revenues through headquarters in low-tax countries like Ireland and Luxembourg, avoiding taxes in EU countries where revenues are actually generated. The French plan, announced in March, would take 3% of digital sales in France from companies that have global revenues of over 750 million euros and French revenue of more than 25 million euros. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire says the tax would affect around 30 companies and that it could raise 500 million euros a year.
Today, the largest digital companies, those that make the most profit, pay 14 tax points less than any other company in France. This situation is not sustainable.
The U.S. probe, known as a Section 301 investigation, is the same method Trump has used in his trade war with China, leading to fears of new tariffs or trade restrictions on French goods, a move even U.S. tech industry lobbyists have urged against. Other European countries have launched their own digital tax efforts after an EU-wide measure failed earlier this year. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development says it's working on a worldwide solution for taxing digital firms by 2020.
You're watching France 24. Stay with us.